Hey there, guys. Okay, two really quick things. Number one, the hiatus is suspended but not over. Um, my last hiatus video, I mentioned how my dad had recently gone into hospice care and was within a couple of weeks or months of dying. Well, unfortunately, I did. Fortunately, I went home. I spent some time with him. It was a very valuable time. I'm very thankful that I got to go home. But unfortunately, he did actually pass away Monday morning at 7 a.m. Um, I was there when it happened. I don't know if I'm glad I was there or not. I think it was helpful for him, but it was difficult. It was very very difficult to be home at that time. Um, but because of that, obviously, I'm back in Washington now. I'm able to record, but I'm only here for about 2 days. I will be going back to Oklahoma for services on Thursday night. So, needless to say, the channel is not going to get back up to its normal swing, and the streams will not be resuming yet, but I should be able to get enough recorded that the channel won't go dark either. There will be content that will continue to be posted. So, that's good. Um, and that is the update in terms of the channel. If you're here in order to watch, blind runs of video games, and that's all you care about, by all means, feel free to exit the video now. The rest of the video is going to be me kind of talking about the process of a person dying. And that may seem really morbid, and you may just be sitting there like, I don't want to hear that. And I totally understand if that's the case. I'm not going to feel bad if anyone stops the video now. However, I just went through it. And I really wish I had known what to expect. So, I'm passing this along for anyone that wants to know sort of what happens when someone gets to the end of their life. Now, needless to say, all people are different, so this is not an absolute guide, but hopefully it will help if you want to know. Um, so, I got home on Tuesday morning, and Dad was a wreck. Um, he, I seriously, I thought he was going to die like within the next day or two when I first saw him. He had not slept well the night before, and so he kept falling asleep mid-sentence, and it was weird enough to almost be funny because he would be talking to you, and then he would fall asleep for about 20 seconds, and he would wake up and continue talking to you. It's almost like he was losing consciousness, not falling asleep, because he would not remember he had been asleep. So you would have this conversation broken up by 3 or 4 like lapses into sleep. Oh, it was weird. And however, that was Tuesday. Wednesday he was better. Thursday he was a lot better. Friday he actually got to the point where he was trying to get out of bed, because when you're in hospice you're bedridden. You're basically done. But he was getting up. He was going to go upstairs. He was going to work on stuff. He was doing great. And I was really confused, to be honest. I mean, I thought he was on death's door when I got back, and all of a sudden here he is talking about building up his leg strength because he's been in bed for a week. And, he's going to go. He's going to, work on some things. He's going to get the cable guy out there, fix some wiring. I mean, his mind was completely back. It was like nothing ever happened. Except for the fact he had a stroke, so his voice and his speech was impaired. But other than that, I mean, it seemed like a full recovery. And I let myself get excited about that. I let myself feel better about that. The first few days when I was back, we actually slept in shifts so Dad would never be alone. And after, a day or two of his recovery, we were like, well, you know what, we're going to bed. If you need us, call. Because he seems so much better. I now know that is what is referred to as a rally. And it's effectively a person who is dying will gather the last of their strength together for basically a last hurrah. And he was not actually getting better. What he was doing was he wanted more than anything, because at that time both me and my sister were there, and he was so afraid that our visit would be ruined by him dying. And so he was doing everything he could to lighten the mood, make it, bring levity about, let us enjoy our time in Oklahoma, and let us enjoy our time with him rather than it being marred with sadness. Saturday, his hurrah ended. His, rally ran out of energy, and he got a lot worse. He improved a lot, and then he just dove right back. Saturday, you could still talk to him some, but he was in so much pain. He was incredibly. I mean, and he was just it. He would be moaning in pain while he slept, which was a brand new thing. It was just, and he was very badly suffering. Sunday, he kept trying to get out of the bed again, except unlike Friday, where he had been, on the verge of just going out and doing stuff, on Sunday, he did not have the strength to do it. But he kept trying anyway. He would not stay still. And whenever the nurse came by and saw that, she described it as terminal anxiety. It's when someone gets to the very, very end, they won't want to stay. Well, actually, that's not true. When someone gets to the very, very end, one of two things will typically happen. If they are a very, very strong-willed person that likes being in control, they will tend to fight till the very end. They won't want to stay in bed. They know something's happening. They can feel themselves dying, but they don't like being out of control, and they will resist that with everything they have. And so that's what he was doing. He was like, no, I'm not going to stay here in this bed. I'm going to die here. And so he wanted to leave. He wanted to go somewhere else, but he didn't have the strength to. And obviously, logically, we know going somewhere else is not going to help the situation any. But it's the human equivalent of the fight or flight response. He was just, he could feel death coming, and he didn't want to stay. He was going to struggle against it until he couldn't struggle anymore. This is where hospice is amazing, because he was very, all day Sunday I did not get to talk to him. He was conscious, but he was just in so much pain that his like logical his consciousness sort of shut down, and it was just sort of, he was behind a mask of agony. And the great thing about hospice is that hospice is assigned to you when you have very, very little time left. And so a lot of the restrictions that are on medical personnel are not on hospice. A good example of that is like painkillers, especially narcotics, such as morphine and what's the other really strong one? Like, not Loratab. There's a strong. It doesn't matter. Stuff like morphine. Very typically, you are incredibly limited on how much morphine you can give to someone because it's bloody addictive. I mean, there's tons of people that are, addicted to morphine and Oxycontin and all that stuff. But when someone's in hospice and they're not going to be around for very much longer anyway, it doesn't make any difference if they get addicted to it. They're dying, And so, thankfully, hospice came and they said, you know what, we're giving them a, I forget what the dosage is, but we're filling a full vial of morphine and giving it to him every 15 minutes until he falls asleep, which is so much more morphine than you would ever give to someone normally. They're giving him anti-anxiety medications. They're loading him up, and effectively they're putting so much medication in his system because at that moment, whenever you get to the point of being terminally anxious and are just in so much pain, the kindest thing you can do to someone is to put so much medication in their system that you force them into unconsciousness. Because, your body is shutting down. Your crucial systems are flatlining. And so if you're conscious, you're going to be in pain. You're going to be in agony. And so the last 16 hours or so of his life, he was in a drug-induced haze. And I feel a little bit conflicted about that, because on the one hand, it's the best thing we could have done for him. And I know it was the best thing we could have done for him. But on the other hand, it does feel very weird that, the last 16 minutes I had, or 16 hours I had with Dad, was me going in there and taking a little syringe and just putting more morphine in so that he wouldn't be able to regain consciousness. And it feels awkward and, almost like a cruel thing to do, but I know it's not, if that makes any kind of sense. So, but yes, if if you are ever around while someone is dying, A, do everything you can to get them into hospice care. All right? The entire point of hospice is to say, we are at a stage now where they can't be saved. Let's make them as comfortable as possible for the end. Let's not have them in a hospital with beeping and strangers and people coming in and taking their temperature all the time. Let's get them home, put them around familiar surroundings, and give them what they need in order to be comfortable as the end comes. Hospice is amazing. I very much recommend it to anyone that is unfortunate enough to be in a situation where it's needed. They also handle whenever the person finally dies. Hospice comes in, takes care of it. You know, if you have hospice and someone dies, you call the hospice nurse. Hospice shows up. They take the body. They arrange. They will work with whoever you want with to deal with the funeral or cremation or whatever you're doing. But hospice is there to give you that support you need during a situation in our life where we're just not ready to deal with it. It's not something that we're good at. If you don't have hospice, then what will typically happen is A, you will call 911 because someone died and that's what you have to do. And so the paramedics will show up, and unless there's actually someone with the paramedics that is able to pronounce someone dead, which oftentimes they're not, they're going to try and perform CPR because that's what they have to do. And then the police will show up and will effectively open a investigation to try and determine whether there was foul play involved. I mean, it's the path it goes down if hospice is not involved is just a much more stressful path. So if someone is at that point in their life, get hospice involved. And number 2, be aware of the rally. Don't get fooled by it. I don't want to be like, if someone is near the end of their life and they start getting better, don't be happy about it, but be aware that the rally exists. And so if they suddenly seem to be improving a lot, it may not be genuine, and they may crash again in a couple of days. And the last thing, right towards the end, within about the last 24 hours, pay attention to their extremities. Pay attention to their feet, their hands. Pay attention to their ears. If you start to see colors shift, then that lets you know, okay, it's almost here. Unfortunately, by the time you see that, they may be in too much pain to really do anything about it, but at least you will know. You'll be aware that this is happening. And the last thing, just to let anyone know, I talked earlier about how Dad was a fighter. Dad liked being in control, and that's why he was so anxious to, not be in bed. He was going to be in, command of his own destiny. If you have someone that is much more laid back, someone who is much more amicable to work with others and doesn't have to be in control, then you will probably have a much easier time in this situation than I did. Because people that are like that will also feel death coming, but will be more, okay, I knew this was going to happen. Let me just lay back and sort of, resign yourself to the fact that it's happening. Which, talking about it, I feel like I would rather fight, even though I knew it wouldn't win, because that's what we do in America. But it is actually, I would prefer to go that way. Both, it's more comfortable for me, and it's certainly more comfortable to anyone that's taking care of you. Not that, obviously, you can control your instincts, but I don't know. This is stuff I didn't know, and I wished I had. So, hopefully knowing it will be beneficial to you all. Thanks very much for tuning into this. You can probably, like I said, expect a Zisteria episode up later today or tomorrow. There will also be a Baton Kaitos episode coming up. Kuni, and probably another Zisteria. I bet I can record 2 of them. So, and then, I am back in about a week. I will be coming back next Wednesday or Thursday to Washington, and that should be the last of, I don't see anything else happening, and I certainly hope nothing else happens. It's been a really rough week, and I need it to not continue. I do feel better, though. You can probably already hear me. If anyone hasn't lost a parent yet, and you're hearing me right now and you're just in awe of, like, how can he be so calm if he just lost his dad yesterday morning? Well, thankfully, I was home. I saw it coming. I was able to steel myself for it. Honestly, I was a lot more emotional to find out he was going to die. By the time he actually died, I hate to say it, but it was a blessing. Because he was just in so much pain. And I look back on it, and I now realize there were only three ways that could have happened. One is the way it happened. Two is he would have died before then. Possibly before I got back to him, which would have been a tragedy and would have bothered me the rest of my life. Or he could have died earlier in the week, which would have been just as bad to a certain degree, because you have such a fall off right before, obviously you die, that it would have meant I would have had less time with him when he was cognizant, when he was, he had his wits about him. I was able to have conversations with him. And that was probably the most important 3 days that I've had this year. When you know someone's about to go, I would give anything to keep those 3 days. And so I'm so glad I got to go home and talk to him before. And now I am getting emotional. And then the third thing that could have happened would be that he didn't pass on until after I'd come back to Washington. Which, on the one hand, you want to be like, well, yeah, that would have been better. You want him to live as long as he can. Not when he's in as much pain as he was. At the point where he was the last day before I came back, we were keeping him comatose. There was nothing good in his life anymore. He was in so much pain that all we could do was keep him unconscious so he couldn't feel the pain. So, and at least while I was there, I was better able to deal with it. The death you see coming is always easier to handle than the one that comes out of the blue. So if he had just lingered on for another 2 weeks and then suddenly I get the call, it would have been much, much harder for me. So, I'm rambling now. I'm sorry. I will end this. Look forward to new episodes, and thank you for all of your kind words the previous one. It's been a trial to get through this. My real-life friends and family have certainly been very beneficial, and I'm not downplaying how nice it was to have them, but it was also really, really helpful that I had such a support network of people I don't even know, but people that genuinely cared about what was going on. It seems silly to draw strength from complete strangers on the internet, but I've been doing this long enough that you're not complete strangers anymore. So thank you.